Hi there everybody, it's UK independent Stampin' Up demonstrator Halsey here from slimandstylish.stampinup.net. Thank you very much for joining me today. Today I'm going to be creating this Mother's Day card. So it's using a M template which I'm creating myself on my basic white. So this is 10.5 centimetres by 14.8. And to start off with, I'm just going to make 2 lines straight down the paper, and this is where it's really handy to have grid paper, at 3 centimetres on either side. Now they're really faint and really light so that you won't see them in the end. The gap in between the 3 centimetres I've split in half, so I've literally just drawn a line straight down the centre of the paper. Okay, so that will be at 5.25 centimetres. I've then drawn a line 3 centimetres down that, and I've connected the dots from the top of the corner down, so we've got a little bit of a triangle going at the top. Now what I'm just doing is I'm coming in at 4 centimetres on each side, okay? And I've gone up by 1 centimetre and I'm going to go across to join up the lines. A bit later on I'm going to change that and I'll explain why when I do it. So what I'm also doing is I'm going to go 3 centimetres down from that line, and I'm going to draw myself another V so that I'm continuing that M along. Now you can see I am making this a bit wider. The reason why is I'm going to cut the centre out and I still want this to stand up. So I wanted enough of a thick base that this will still stand at the end. So instead I went up 2 centimetres rather than 1 centimetre. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it out so it would create a M for mother. I don't know what really made me come up with this idea, but since I've done it, I really like it. And I was starting to think that I might do ones with H's so that I can do Happy Christmas and things like that later. There's also times when you can do named birthday cards as well. They would be pretty cool. So yeah, I just generally quite like the idea after doing it. And I've decided I'm going to make myself a whole host of templates up so I can do them on other cards. Now what I'm doing here is I'm getting my card base. This is my thick basic white. This is a A6 card base, and you can see I'm just drawing my M round as a template. Now you don't want to get anything on your original piece because you are going to use that, but you just want to create the M on your base card, and again I'm just going to cut that out. Now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to cut it out on the front and on the back, but the reason I'm not doing it together is because the thick basic card white is thick, and I wanted to make sure I got crisp cuts rather than actually going through. So I've took an extra little bit of time and I am doing this twice. So there's my middle of my M out, and then I'm just going to do the V. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to close it and go again. So I'm just double checking that that does fit my front template, which is where I'm going to do all the decorations. It was just off by a slight bit, so I've cut that in. And then you can see I'm going through with my pencil, and I'm going to be doing the back now. Now it's up to you. You could have left this with the back still in place and put some DSP through it so it showed through. You know, that would have been fine as well, but I just wanted to create a complete M. And this was the reason why I wanted my feet to be bigger so that it would hold the weight of the entire card. So cutting out all the centerpieces here. It is a little bit fiddly because of the shape of the character, but it's nothing too bad. And it just is going to look so beautiful when it's done. And there we go. Double check it with the front to make sure it all lines up and it all looks good. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to put the card base to the side and we're just going to work on the front. So I'm going to be decorating this front here. So I've got a whole load of stamps. Flowers of Friendship is the one I end up using, but I also looked at Quiet Meadow, Framed Occasions, Lovely You and Flowering Tulips because that had the sentiment for Mother's Day on. But I do end up only using a few at the end. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using this Flowers of Friendship punch. This coordinates brilliantly with the stamp set, but what you need to do is line everything up on the stamp set. Now I'm going to do this right eventually, but I'm going to do it wrong first. And I'm going to tell you I did that as a learning exercise for you, but really I was being dense. So if you punch this punch out of paper, you can then line your stamps up on a block so that you can then stamp them down perfectly how you want them and punch them out, and it's not going to waste as much paper. My biggest problem and pet peeves with these punches is that if you want the little flower at the bottom, you end up having to punch through the entire rest of your Whisper White for no reason. So this here is a great way of getting lots. And if you just want the little flower, that's absolutely fine. Have the little flower. But you've got some extras that you can put in a drawer and use for a bigger time of the others. And it's just not wasted paper. Now you can see I've cut my stamp down a little bit there. That's just because there was a bit of an overhang and it wouldn't line up on the stamp right for me. That's no problem. I haven't cut into the image. Now you see here, this is where I've gone wrong. When I actually punched originally, I didn't flip the paper around. So I have got my leaves the wrong way around. So I now need to put my paper back the right way and change my leaves around. Dense, I know. But yeah, cutting your stamps isn't going to harm them if you're just cutting the red rubber that's around the side of it or the excess photopolymer off. You just don't want to cut any of the bit that's actually going to be stamping. And the only reason I've done it is just so it'll all fit on the stamp quite nicely. And you'll notice now when I stamp it down and punch it, it lines up. How cool is that? So I'm going to do that a couple of times on this piece of paper. And then what I'm actually going to do is grab a long piece of scrap basic white. I was a bit dense actually the other week. I cut a whole load of what I thought was card bases and I did them tenfold, so they're the full length of an A4 piece, just like that. But I did them out of basic white and not out of the thick basic white, so they're no good for card bases. So I'm now using them for scraps. So I'm colouring in using light and dark Highland Heather. You will notice that I am really not being tidy with this. I've got into a stage at the moment, especially with flowers, of doing sort of messy blending where I'm going in at the colour at the middle and I'm not going all the way to the edges, so there's some white showing. It looks a bit lazy, but actually I love it on these sort of flowers. I think it gives a nice texture. Flowers aren't perfect, and I just think it's so quick and so easy, and I like it. So that's what I've done on these. I've used Flirty Flamingo Light and Dark on these flowers. I've used Dark Daffodil Delight in the middle, and I'm using Soft Succulent Light and Dark for the leaves. And then you can see I can just go along and punch them all in one go, which just makes my job so much easier. You can see the benefits of lining everything up on the block. Now that I've done that, I'm just going to do these ones I'd already pre-cut. Just so you're aware for future, it's a lot easier to blend these all in when they're attached to the big sheet. So if you want my recommendation, colour them in and then punch them out. This was just because I was showing you a bit earlier and wanted to make sure they were right. So for my M, I'm going to use some Pool Party, and I'm going to be creating a blended background on there using my blending brushes. And I'm not going to be doing loads, and I'm not going to make it even. I just want a pop of colour, and I just want it in random places. So you can see that I've coloured in the back of that. Now, out of the Quiet Meadow stamp set, I'm going to be using that ink splat. I love this ink splat. I use it in so many places. I've hardly used any of the other stamps in Quiet Meadow, but that ink splat I have used a lot. And then I got these tools here. So this was from the range that we have in the UK, but I'm pretty sure you can get them from many of the craft stores. And it's like a little tweezer, but it's curved at the end. I'm sure there's a technical term for it. But if you put it over your petal, put your finger on it and twist, so you do a full 180-degree twist, it creates this sort of pop-up thing in your flower. Now, I don't want to do it on all of my flowers. I only want a few of them popping off the page, because I want to create sort of like a nice effect. So I've only done it on one or two of them, but when I do the next one, have a look. I put my thumb on it and I twist it 180 degrees just where I want the curl to be, and it will pop these out. Now all I'm doing here is just creating a nice mosaic of the flowers. I'm just building them up. I'm not going to put them all the way over the M. I did think about doing that when I first started, but I just think it would have lost the effect. So what I'm doing is I'm creating this effect in just a few places. So mix and match them up. Make sure you've got a nice mix of Flirty Flamingo and Highland Heather, and make sure they're not all the same height and you've got them all sort of fluctuating going up there, and you've got some leaves popping out as well. And then start on a different side of the card. So I'm going to start on the top corner. And what I'm doing is I'm popping my popped out one first so that it can then build the base behind it. The reason I'm doing it with the plier tool rather than the dimensionals to get some extra weight is because I actually want to post this. So I don't want it to be too fat that it's not going to fit in an envelope. This fit perfectly at the end of it because I want to give it to my mum for Mother's Day. So I'm using the glue dots just to attach these. It's simpler. You could have used runner glue, you could have used your Tombow, and then you could have moved it around. But I just find glue dots are just quick and simple for these sort of cards. So you can see I've done the top left, the bottom right. I'm also going to do a little bit of detail on the top right, and then I'm going to do a little bit of detail down towards the bottom where I'm actually going to put some twine as well. But I'm going to be leaving a lot of white space so that you can see the pool party I've put on there and you can see the grunge. Now, if you don't like this and you want to, have stopped before it and only just done 1 foot, that's fine. Up to you. What I'm doing here is I'm doing a twine loop. So this is the elegant trim and I'm doing it in the gold. I've twisted it around my finger to get a few twirls and I've stuck it onto the card. Now, it's not sticking fantastically great. I think that's because I've blended underneath, so my when I've used the blender brushes, my paper's really smooth, so it hasn't took the adhesive as well. So I'm going through and I'm adhering each bit in. Now I'm only adhering it with light adhesive because I'm going to be coming in and I'm going to be putting my flowers over the top with my glue dot, and I will stick my twine down in the correct place doing that. I just wanted to create a little bit more of a focal piece out of the side, and that's why I put the twine on, just to make it slightly different. And I'm not going to be doing much of a focal piece with the flowers here. I'm just putting a few of them around the twine. Now, the one thing I will do at the end of doing the card is I will trim the bottom underneath the M, but I don't trim any of the rest. So if you do have some overhang, it's okay in your envelope, it's all right. If there is too much, you're going to have to trim it to put it in your envelope, but the amount I've got is fine. I'm just going to be trimming underneath the bottom of the M to smooth those flowers off so that when my card stands up, it stands up straight. So I'm grabbing my sentiment, which says Happy Mother's Day. I'm inking that out in Memento ink. I'm going to cut this as thin and as fine as physically possible, and I'm just going to adhere it to the card. I haven't done a big sentiment because I feel the rest of the card is just screaming, look at me. So I didn't want the sentiment to detract from the beautiful pieces that we had done. Stick that down with a thin line of dimensionals so that actually pops up. And there we go. That's pretty much the base of the card done. Now you can see I'm just putting a flower there to hold my twine. And then I'm going to be using our 3D foam. So I love this. It's adhesive backed. It's absolutely great. And for these sort of cards that are going to be heavy and you want them to stick up in the right place, it's absolutely brilliant. I've got loads of offcuts. So I'm using all my offcuts here and sticking them into place. And I'm going all the way around the edges, and I'm even using these thin bits. So if you ever use these 3D foams and you have bits that are left, keep them. I always keep them at my front of my drawer, and then I add them to cards later because there's always spaces for them. Rip off all the backing and adhere this to the card. Now this was the toughest piece in trying to line this up with the flowers on. But I went for the middle bit there. You see where the dip is and the triangle? I went for there to attach it. And you can see I'm just cutting off the bottom pieces like that. It cut through my twine, but it didn't really matter. And there is my card. It standing up lovely. It didn't balance and fall over. I've added some of our adhesive back sequins on the front. They came in the right colours for the card and I love them. What do you think? This is an unusual card for me, but I'm so impressed with the outcome. Everything's available from slimandstylish.stampinup.net if you wish to buy. Do leave me a comment and a thumbs up or subscribe if you're new. Have a lovely day. Bye.